Beyond regret, how to reflect, release, and reset.
Today on the Wandering But Not Lost podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to Wandering But Not Lost, your online source for finding balance so that you can align, connect, and prosper. And now your hosts, Jen O'Brien and Matt Emerson.
Well, welcome back to the Wandering But Not Lost podcast, where we help you align your business, your life, and your mindset so you can thrive, not just survive. This is episode 361. You can find all those show notes over at WBNLpodcast.com. So let me just say up front that I have spent most of my life being one of those I have no regrets guy, because that makes you look like you're with it, you're stronger, and you know what the heck's going on. And I have said many more times than once, sometimes very, very frequently, everything happens for a reason.
Oh, I say that one.
Right. Okay, and sure, here's the deal. Maybe it does, but here's the truth I've come to learn about all that. We all carry regrets. Some are light, fleeting moments that drift in and out like a passing thought, but others, and these are the ones, they kind of linger. They hum in the background, and sometimes they shape us more than we even realize, or because they're just kind of back there, not really top of mind, but they're back there. So today we're not pushing those feelings away. We are done with pushing those feelings away. We're pulling them right into the light, because inside every regret is a chance to grow, to forgive, and to begin again. So let's just start about what regret really is.
Okay.
So really, what is it? Is at its core, regret is the clash between our past actions and our present values. And when you really start to unravel this and understand really what it is, it makes so much sense why it kind of pulls and tugs at you. It's that voice that says, I knew better, I should have acted, I missed my chance. That's what that little voice is saying in the back of your head, right? You coulda, shoulda, woulda. That's another way of saying that. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. But instead of beating ourselves up for those moments, what if we saw regret as proof that we've actually grown, that we've evolved? And that gives me chills thinking about that. Because over the years, I've heard countless stories from friends, colleagues, my own little inner voice in my head, coaching clients, people from all walks of life who carry the weight of one specific moment that changed how they saw themselves. It's often not the big public decisions that people dwell on. That gets hung up in your head, that keeps you awake when you're laying in bed at night. It's often the quieter ones. It's moments like not speaking up in a meeting, even when you had something meaningful to say. Now, I'm sure everyone has experienced that at some point. Sometimes, but a lot of times it's not something that is, oh my gosh, that was the moment for me. Not taking a risk. This is a big one, right? Even when your gut was screaming for you to take that risk. Or choosing comfort over courage because the unknown felt too big. What strikes me in these stories is a little pattern. It's not the failure that they regret. It's the abandonment of self-trust. That feeling of I didn't back myself when it mattered. Right? I didn't back myself when it mattered, and that's where regret stings the most. It's harder and harder to get out of. Not because you lost an opportunity, but because we ignored a part of ourselves that was ready to rise. So when I hear someone say, "I regret not doing it," what I actually hear is, "I know now what I didn't believe then, that I was more capable than I gave myself credit for," and that is super, super powerful, because regret, as painful as it can be, isn't there to punish us. It's here to remind us that you've grown, and, maybe now you're ready. It's not a sentence. It's a signal.
Wow. That is powerful right there. I like that. I like the evolving part, the awareness around that, right? So let's talk, Matt, about 4 types of regret. Researchers say there are 4 common types of regret. So let's talk about them. We'll define them a little bit and see which ones, or all, or 1 or 2, hit home with you, because they're going to. Number 1 is foundation regrets. This is, if only I'd taken better care of my health, my finances, my habits, you fill in the blank. and when this comes up a lot, made me think, we're prepping for this episode, that great book, Mitch Albom, I think his name is, called Tuesdays with Morrie. Did you read that book?
I did not.
It's just really a classic with, Tuesdays with Morrie is just the whole setup of the protagonist, the person in the book, I think is the author. I think it's really is the author. And he's meeting with Morrie on Tuesdays, and Morrie is dying. And, the lessons that come out of there are pretty much what we're talking about right here, right? And that makes you think that how many times have you heard when somebody is close to death or they're at the end of their life, this is when they're saying, if only I had taken better care of my health. If only I had, and let's go to number 2, which is boldness regrets. If only I'd spoken up, or if I'd asked that person out, or I started that business, or if only I had taken that chance on myself,
right.
That risk, that's what they might regret. Boldness regrets, taking action. The third one is moral regrets. I wish I hadn't said that to this person or hurt that person. I wish I'd done the right thing. So those could be the lingering ones that are hanging out there. Just a little something that was said that really hurt somebody's feelings and maybe stuck with them for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth one is connection regrets. I wish I'd stayed in touch with that person. I wish I hadn't lost contact, or I was the one who reached out. And a lot of times that happens, Matt, with some kind of miscommunication or people holding on to something that caused a relationship to break apart, or people not to talk to each other anymore over, and usually we find that it's when you do finally talk to someone, you could have resolved it a long time ago, repairing a relationship, or just going for years not talking to the other person because you're both stubborn. Right? Those regrets are going to really eat at you. And even though you might say, I don't ever need to talk to that person again. If you really care or love that person, it happens with family a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So interestingly, boldness regrets are the most common, right? People don't usually say, I wish I played it safer. That's really, unless you just are
true.
Adventure, to the max, and every day is a bold thing that you're doing. People aren't just going to say that. I wish I'd played it safer. They say, I wish I'd gone for it. The most common regret isn't failure, it's the inaction. That's what you were just saying. And the biggest what if isn't usually about what went wrong. It's about what never got a chance to begin, right? So hopefully this is hitting. If you're listening, you're really starting to see that, because you know what? There's no time like the present.
There is no time. So on that note, let's talk about how we can work with regret instead of letting regret work on us.
Yes.
Because it really can eat away at you. Yeah. You just have to start by being honest. There's no sugarcoating, no spiritual bypassing, just a moment of truth between you and you. Right? So ask yourself these.
Sit yourself down.
Yeah, sit yourself down. Doesn't have to be in front of the mirror, but that might not be a bad idea. Ask yourself these questions. Where did I hold back? What did I abandon in myself? What would I do differently now? Not to change the past necessarily, but to honor the growth that I've learned. And I think this whole idea of being able to wrestle a little bit more because of knowing that you've grown is so valuably important to the process. There's this myth that we're supposed to let go and just move on instantly from things. And, that's a goal. That's a good goal, right? To not hold on to things. So you need to move on. But real healing doesn't really work like that. You can't it's not just over in a second. You have to work on it, and you have to be aware, and you have to be in tune with what you're actually feeling and what you're pushing back, and then what you're also bringing to the front. So it is so vitally important to get kind of in tune with where your mind is, because sometimes reframing regret means sitting with it in the discomfort, right, for a little while. And then you just need to own it. And then using it as the fuel. And this is what's so exciting about this whole process here. When you really start digging in and working on it, you want you're using it as fuel to speak up more, to love deeper, to take that next step without second guessing everything, to be stronger in the next time you're faced with something similar, you're ready to dive in because of all of the things you've learned since the last time, since you maybe didn't do that thing the first time. I keep a little thought tucked away in the back of my head for easy retrieval. You didn't know then what you know now, but now that I do, live like it. I'm going to say that again. You didn't know then what you know now, but now that you do, live like it. I love that. I love that, because so often you're like, oh, I wish I would have done that. Well,
and then you know what? That's wonderful what you're saying right there, because if you get that, that's the awareness piece, Matt. And if you get that and you don't live like it, then you just get the opportunity to have an experience of that again and maybe learn the lesson.
Well, that's exactly right? So that's really the power of reflection. It's not to rewrite the story, but to write the next chapter and do it with more clarity and more courage. You just have the opportunity. Sure, that one thing that you might have missed in the past isn't maybe going to be the exact same opportunity you have now, but you can do something. You just have the opportunity to take the ball and run with it anytime that you're making those decisions.
All right, I love it. So Matt covered reflection, and I get to cover release and reset, which are the final steps in this whole process, right? So let's talk about how we actually do move on. But you can't skip that reflection part and the feeling pieces and all of that. So one of the most effective ways to process regret is just to acknowledge it, to speak it, to write it, to get it out of your head and into the light, where it can be sort of just moved on into the ether. Okay. Yeah. But it's not just like saying, I'm going to forget it. It is going through that process that you said. So here's a couple ideas to continue that. Try writing down one regret that still lingers. If it's triggered something for you today, listening to this, what is it? What is that one regret that still lingers? Ask yourself, what did I learn from it? What am I learning from it? Then write what you would tell someone you love if they made the same choice. Are you watching somebody go through exactly, now here's the deal, exactly what you're seeing it and you're wishing you could change it for them. Sometimes people have to go their own journey and they have to learn it their way. But what would you tell someone? And you wouldn't tell someone how they should live their life. I think it's sharing maybe what you've learned from maybe a mistake or a choice you didn't make around regret, right? So you'll be amazed how differently you treat yourself when you shift into that voice of empathy, right? Empathy for yourself, empathy for the other person who's going through it. Our job isn't to fix people. No. Our job, in my opinion, all of our jobs, all of our missions and purpose, I think, on some level, is to be the best version of yourself and to be walking around just being, not telling people what to do, just doing it yourself, being in integrity, right? Yeah. So here's another little ritual you can try. Write your regrets on a small piece of paper. I love little rituals. I really do. I think it helps you do something with action and intention. And I think everything is about intention anyway. So if you actually just get out of your head and you do this little idea, then you're setting some intention to really let it go. So write your regret on a small piece of paper, fold it, bless it, burn it, bury it, toss it, do something. That is the tearing it up or burning it or whatever safely is the real releasing of it, right? You're letting it go physically and symbolically. And the goal here isn't to be perfect. It's not perfection. The goal is to find the peace. That's the goal.
Absolutely. So if you're holding on to regret today, just remember you're not broken. You're awake. It means you're becoming more aligned with who you are and who you're here to be, which I suppose is what you were just talking about, kind of the goal, right? So
language today, right. Man.
So don't fear regret. Face it, feel it, and let it teach you, and then choose again. Because that's the point. Life is about opportunity. Life is about choice. Your past does not define you, but your willingness to grow from it absolutely does define you. So we're here to walk the walk and talk the talk, and we're on the path with you. We have created a little reflection, a regret reflection journal. It's super simple. What it really does is just talking about what Jan was talking about, that ritual a little bit. Sometimes writing things down and getting them out of your head and onto a piece of paper really makes a big difference in the way you can actually handle situations. And often it's really, really hard when you're staring at that paper. So we've given you some prompts in here to kind of get you going on that. So you can check that out over at wanderingbutnotlost.com to go to our downloads link at the top menu there, and you can download that journal, and it really helps you take the next steps, towards clarity, compassion, and forward momentum, because that's really what it's all about. And also, you can find the link to that over in the show notes here for the episode at WBNLpodcast.com. This has been episode, let me click the little button, 361. So, a little programming note. We're kind of going into vacay mode next week. And so we're only going to drop one podcast, which sounds ridiculous to say we're only dropping one podcast next week. But
on the week.
But anyway, but you don't want to miss that podcast, because it's happy hour in the WBNL podcast studio with Matt and Jan, and we're going to be celebrating the summer solstice.
And we love the summer solstice. There's always solstice and equinoxes, right?
Exactly. So here's the deal: you have 7 days now, or you have whatever you're watching this, and if it's the fall when you're watching this, that's okay. Just go out and get something, and then you can just watch the next one right away. But you have about a week or so to go grab your favorite glass of sunshine and join us for episode 362 next week. That's it for today. Be forever wandering, but not lost.
Glass of sunshine was perfect.